On the economy, Politico has a story saying Republicans have given up on Trump having any discipline and Trump. They just don't think Trump's ever going to be the one who says things that we know. I feel your pain. Things are bad. So it's like Trump's going to be the guy who says everything's great. It's going to get better. J.D. Vance is going to Pennsylvania next week. Fascinating, right? The vice president going to the same state the president went to talk about the economy. And it's not like there's a presidential election coming up. So interesting choice. And so the thought is, well, maybe J.D. Vance and maybe some of these other surrogates, Scott Bessent, they can be the ones who feel the pain and kind of a good cop, better cop situation. Here's one of the many potential spokespeople who talks about the economy for the administration. This is Howard Lutnick on Fox and Friends talking about interest rates, 111.
I think the United States of America still has the highest rates of any amazing country with the greatest credit. I mean, think about it. We are the greatest country with the greatest credit, and we pay the most for our bonds. It just doesn't make any sense. Interest rates in America should be much lower. The cost of housing should be much lower. President Trump understands it, and that is absolutely correct.
President likes his friend Howard for a number of reasons, including he's a glass three-quarters full guy. And here's another guy who's glass five-eighths full, Stephen Moore. Larry brought this to our attention. The economist often gives advice to the administration publicly and privately on the economy. And Larry explained this very confusing chart that's up on the screen for those of you watching, listening on the podcast version.
I don't think it's that confusing. It
Yeah.
shows what the grocery prices have been since 2017 when Trump took over. And you can see in the red line, that's where grocery prices were under the Trump administration. Then you see where grocery prices went during the Biden administration. And now, as inflation has somewhat stabilized, although there was a slight tick up in the late spring, early summer, as things start to get under control, it's not like we're going to have the prices immediately plummet down to the Trump era. If people are angry about prices right now, it's because we're still cleaning up from the unruly and unwarranted rampant spending and out of control policies of the Biden administration. You don't put that genie back in the bottle in just 6 months.
Right. All right, Kevin, it's a little bit complicated. Maybe I'll sum it up the articulateness to explain my theory. If we've all seen in an election year, in a midterm year, the panic and the division that comes if the president's poll numbers are bad, if consumers are unhappy, voters are unhappy. We all know that at some point the NRCC and the other political arms say we got to separate from the president. We can't. We got to distance ourselves. We don't want to campaign with him, etc. It seems to me that we don't know what the economy is going to be like next year. We don't know what consumers will think about the economy. The president's right. There's a gap between how people feel about the economy and what's going on in some areas, not in all, but in some, right? So I think that if they really do this, if they basically say to themselves and to the Hill, the president's never going to say things are not great. So just accept that. But we've got other people who will go out and say things can be better. Is that a way to preemptively head off the dynamic, because the press will write the story every day between now and the midterms. Trump's saying how great everything is. Now we're going to talk to voters who don't think it is. Just make the lemonade out of this situation. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think it's got to come from the president, right? And he just has to look at the last 4 years of the Biden administration. Again, this was the guy that tried to sell Bidenomics, to conservative audiences for 4 years, and people weren't buying it because, to your point and to Larry's point, it's how people feel, right? Necessarily, not the statistics, not the GDP. We're leading the G7, all this kind of stuff that we talked about during the Biden years. It's actually what people feel, and half Americans right now in polls say that this is the worst economic situation that they've felt, including 37% of Americans that voted for Donald Trump just a year ago.
Yeah.
So he's got to acknowledge that. It can't be Scott Bessent. He's great out there, no tax on tips and stuff like that. It can't be J.D. Vance. It's got to be the president to some degree. And it's this delicate dance that the president can maneuver, and he's a great messenger, right? He can still champion the power of the U.S. economy, all these foreign investments, and all that kind of stuff.
But Kevin, that's my point. Is it you're saying it has to be the president? What if the president's just the champion of optimism, and these other people fill that in? Larry, is that workable?
I think it is. And I think that there's a template for this if people go back to the first couple of years of the Reagan presidency. Reagan was always optimistic too, even when we were in the middle of a recession.
Yeah.
But he was optimistic with a velvet glove, and Trump is optimistic with a ball-peen hammer, I guess, if there's an appropriate corollary
or
there.
Don Rickles' insults to the press.
Yeah, and so Trump is going to do it the way he does. I'm thrilled that Republicans, after 10 years in Washington D.C., have given up on trying to change who Donald Trump
Yes.
is. What took you so long? But I think it would be a slight pivot for Donald Trump, the president, if I can be so bold, to just say, listen, we've gotten a lot accomplished. We've done a lot. But the fact of the matter is the giant aircraft carrier that is the American economy does not make a U-turn on a dime. And by the time most Americans start to feel the results of the great things we've done,
but
there's
he
going
won't
to be
even
lag. You're going to feel it. Trust me on this. I did it before. I can do it again.
But he won't even say that. He won't even say.
No, but I think
he'll say
can.
he'll say we've turned the aircraft. This is a pre-canned soundbite, but I'm going to try to deliver it as if it just occurred to me. Here's what just occurred to me. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, especially if the old dog loves the old tricks. Trump loves his old tricks. He's not interested in learning new tricks. It's not like he can't. He loves the old tricks. All right, redistricting.
But I think you're onto something
Larry,
with
you're getting a producer
the
credit
team
on
sort of
today's show
doing
'cause
that
you
part of the messaging for him. Sorry.
I will say
that.
Well, I'm not onto it. They are. I'm only. Yeah.
I will say though that the
Go
president
ahead,
can't, every TV ad that we're going to put in the midterms is him in the Oval Office saying affordability is a scam, right? So you can be optimistic, but you got to acknowledge what people are feeling, and he can't call it out saying it's a Democratic hoax or anything like that. That's the only caveat I'd say.
It's one of the old tricks he loves is to say it's one of the old tricks he loves. When he says affordability is a scam, I believe what he means is lots of prices are down, and this problem was not caused by him.
He
He
means something else.
Perpetuates.
But I think he means something else about that, if I may. Put yourself in his position for a moment.
Yeah.
Where when he ran on the fact that things were too expensive and inflation, and he felt personally that Biden had ruined a pretty good economy that he had set up.
Yeah.
And while he was running and doing that last year, he was told by the experts and by all the talking heads on cable news, well, actually, the economy is quite strong right now. And that's maddening. Suddenly, then, after 3 months he's in office, you've got Zoran Mamdani lighting up the world by saying that we have an affordability problem in New York. Well, who caused the affordability problem?
Yeah.
Trump was talking about it. Everyone poo-pooed it. Zoran Mamdani starts to put TikTok videos together about it, and suddenly he's brilliant. And then, that's going to stick in his butt.
That's sort of what I meant, but
And now they're best friends in the Oval Office.
Yeah. All right.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.